It's a very good question. Yes, I think I did. And I think it was mainly due to the fact that I quickly realized that I was very good in maths. And I was also someone who was very curious, wanting to know things. And it was actually mainly with technical things, wanting to know how this was made and how this was done and why is this blue and red and, those kind of questions. I was about things in, natural things around you. I was a bit curious. And then, of course, as I said, then I found out that I was really good in maths. And, maths is the backbone of science. A lot of things we do in science, if you have an analytical mind and a mathematical mind, it helps you to get, answer your questions and try and find some solutions for your inquiries. So yeah, so that was it. And I was lucky. I was the first in our family, firstborn. I was lucky to have parents who didn't have any restriction on us. And it was a matter of what you wanted to do that they would encourage you to do. And I can say I'm probably the first in the family to have taken on science, but not the only one. But yeah, so I came from a background of family members who encouraged me having an analytical mind and inquiring mind, curious mind, and yeah, that was it. So I mean, I wasn't sure whether that was, at the time I realized it was science, but I realized it was trying to solve problems, identifying issues and trying to work around them. Very much so. Nursing was attracted to, because I had older members of my family, aunties, who said that, oh, get into nursing. He said, nursing is a way to help people. And it was, since you're a bit scientific minded, you're curious, and nursing would be a career for you. Interestingly, teaching wasn't mentioned, although I had quite a few of my relatives were teachers, but not so. Nursing was. It's very interesting because I know as a woman you get asked that question. And I don't know whether it is because I actually am a woman, yes, but I don't look at any distinction between man and woman. And so therefore I do not focus on that. I do not look, I think you would see if it's a gender challenge, you would notice it more if you notice the difference between a man and a woman. And therefore you will be looking out for, how are you treating a man? Is it the same way you're treating a woman, and so on? So I must say that a statement initially. But nevertheless, as a woman, of course, I mean, there are certain things as a woman that you're more, it's more challenging for you to do, to achieve. This is more technical now and physical things. In terms of academic, I don't know, I was probably lucky. For instance, at school, in my class, I was the only girl who was doing physics. All my girlfriends were all going to, because at the time you could do domestic science or physics or something like that, it was stupid. I mean, that was what they were offering. And I said, no, I'm not doing domestic science. I want to do physics. So I was the only girl in my class doing physics. And because of that, I was hanging out with the boys a lot. So I did not really, from that early age at high school, from 3 or so, I didn't see the difference. It wasn't very visible for me, the difference, because I was always hanging out with the boys. And then, of course, I did biology and I did chemistry, and because and maths, of course, as I said, and because I was good in maths, it kind of helped me I wasn't struggling, and therefore I was kind of competing with the boys competitively. So from school, then you go to university, or high school, then you go to university. When you travel abroad, again, I was amongst all my colleagues at the time that left to study biomedical science were all men. I was the only woman in that group as well. So in fact, I quite enjoyed it. Being the only woman, you have a little bit more special attention. But anyway, so we were at school, and I didn't notice in UK, I didn't notice any difference going to university and all that. And then I got a job, and I think again, working in the UK, training as a laboratory scientist, I didn't really see that challenge. But I think the challenge comes when you're going up the ladder. And throughout the training period, you don't see it very much. But the challenge comes when you're going up the ladder, because you see, you have, as a woman, you have more specific things, needs that you have to take care of. For instance, you have to have children. You got to stay at home and look after them. You, apart from the fact that you have to take off maternity leave, which means that your job, your work, your projects are on hold. It also means that when it comes to promotion and all that, you tend not to be considered as for promotion because you probably have not been, there for long enough. So those were challenges, but not anything that would impede or impeded, I don't think impeded my progress. And of course, when you're in the room and you're the only one on the table, around the table, and you have to discuss issues, you need, as a woman, you are very much aware of the gender aspects of discussions, even in science. You have to try and make sure that the female viewpoint is brought up. And I always try and do that. And that is challenging, of course, because you always have this thing about why should we make special provision for women? And you then have to go down the whole list of reasons why you should make special provision for women, i.e., women, as much as we want to be career-minded and all that, we have certain things that would make us not be there 100% of the time. And you have to go on leave and so on. And therefore, I always make sure that the women's point of view is brought forward. So that could be challenging because if you're the only voice, you need to make it very clear. So really, as I said, as you go up in the ladder, it happens. I mean, for instance, when I went to my international job in Lyon, one of the biggest challenges I was faced with is that, apart from the fact that I was the only Black head of a group, I was probably the only 2 or 3 of us women that were head of a group of an organization that had about 15 or 16 group heads. And then I was African. And the challenge there was that I had shifted a little bit from basic science to science policy. And that was a challenge because you were there now trying to tell your colleagues, and most of them are men, that what they're doing is not right and they have to change. So if you're a woman in leadership where you have men colleagues to deal with, that's a big challenge. It was a real challenge, but I had to be firm. I stuck to my gun all the time. And yeah, I survived, but I had I had to, to put up with it. No, because as you know, being an African woman and African family with a support system that we have around us, you are able to get support for areas that you're lacking. I.e., if you have to go away on a course or training, you think of the children first, but you also know that you could get a relative or someone to support you whilst you're away. And so I don't think I shy away from any of that, if we call it a risk. I would take on any opportunity that came along because I knew I had a good support system that would support the family in my absence. So, but I can see that could be a problem if you're you say you live in a place where the extended family, it's not there, and there's not much support, and it's expensive. I think most of the time, our colleagues in Europe and other places, is the cost of having someone to step in. And therefore, women would probably not get down that line because they couldn't afford it, or the family couldn't afford to replace the mother for that period of time. But it is but I think we must really, we should not underestimate the support we get from our families. It's something we must realize that it's what helps us as women scientists, and I think any woman in career to grow. That's a tough question because I really cannot think of it. Because I think, I think as a woman, one thing you have to be very sure about is that you've got to be very strong, in the sense that you got to, if you see anything that's going any way that is not you consider the right way, you have to speak out. And I think when you speak out, you see, sometimes it is not deliberate. It is people's perception of things without considering, putting everything on the table. And I think where as women we can help is not to feel that we are the underdogs, but to be able to continuously bringing forward our own opinion and ideas. And if you do it in a conducive way in the discussion, or you create a platform or an environment where you can allow discussion and so on, you can mitigate some of these things. I cannot say that, but I'm not saying that will not probably have happened to some of my colleagues, but I really, and I think also the other thing about science is that you are actually, a lot of the time, what you're doing, if you do it well, you have a niche for yourself. You create an opportunity, or you create a situation where you probably very few of you doing a certain thing. So what's important is as scientists not to be following what everyone is doing, but to have initiatives and motivation and developing things and creating things. Now, if you do that, you cannot, there's no competition, because you're probably the one who's moving a certain, leadership, moving things. So when you talk about promotion, it depends on what level. But if it's something to do with the area you are in, and you've been the one who's been creating it, making this, asking the questions, trying to find the solution, then that's how it goes. And I think what's important is to focus on your objectives, to have to say, this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to go about it. And no matter what, I'm going to move. You might be distracted here and there, but the end goal, you have to have your eye on the end goal all the time. And I think if you have that focus and that direction, things tend to work out. You might probably end up, in my case, I can say it's not probably promotion where they consider someone a man instead of me because there's a man or not a woman. I think in our case, what you would see is that in this area of creativity I'm talking about, an initiative that you have, you need to have a boss or someone who realizes that this is something that's worth something, and this person needs to move on in their career because they're moving on in this direction. And so you're not in a pool where you have scientific officers or whatever all being promoted or not promoted, but you're moving ahead of the pack. But you need to have the environment where they encourage you to move ahead of the pack. And I think it might be difficult. You might not get to where you want to get to as fast as you want to, but you might get to a position where it's inevitable. There's nothing anyone can do about it. Then you are in a strong place to market yourself. For those who are starting, I think they should not be discouraged by their friends or family or whoever who might say to them, this is a tough, because when I was at school, everyone said science is hard, it's difficult. You cannot get O levels or A levels in science subject. So they should not be discouraged by that. Even if they're the only one, a woman, a girl, they should continue to pursue their dreams. One very important advice is you have to work hard. It's not going to happen easily. If you're going to go into science, you've got to realize that you've got to dedicate time to your work, to your studies, to whatever you're doing. It's not, some people are very gifted and maybe they don't need to work hard, but you need to do the research, you need to read more, you need to go to the library, you need to read your journals, you need to ask questions. And one important thing also, you need to find someone who you can discuss with, find a mentor. At any stage in your life, find a mentor, somebody who's knowledgeable, who you can talk to, who is willing to talk to you. That's one thing about those who are wanting to start. Seek advice. Be inquisitive, be curious, read a lot, read about everything and anything. And for those who are already in it, find a focus, work out in your mind what you want to achieve, where you want to go. And sometimes it's hard because you want to go somewhere and someone, because of your environment and work, you're being pushed somewhere else. But you do not have to be rigid in this. You could re-modify your views. But at the end of the day, whatever you're doing, you're leading up to your goal. You're not being distracted. And by this, I mean that as a scientist, even if you're working for someone who's got a project and you've been given a specific task in that project, obviously the objectives, aims, and objective methods, how you're doing it. Make sure that everything you're doing it right. Don't cut corners. Even if it's hard, if you don't understand, always ask. If you don't understand, read. But do not cut corners. Don't find an easy way out of things. Always do the right thing. This is something that I try to do. It's hard. It's not always doing, but it is. Of course, we all make mistakes, and if you make a mistake, you want to know you made a mistake and accept it and try and correct it. This is what I would say. Dedicate time, but also have time for family. It's very important. Have time for family and spend a lot of time on your work.